Hey everybody, Darren from Vinyl Corner. We got a really pretty cool episode for you today. We're going to talk about very underrated records from strong, established, and well loved bands from over the years. You know, you get a whole discography, and many of them get a career. Some of them are still out and about, and people buy the greatest hits, and then they go back and some of these records we talk about probably had some success during the time they were released, but it kind of gets lost in the shuffle as we start looking at the whole discography of the band. If you are a huge diehard fan of that band, you probably have many of these. If you are more of a casual listener, you may have seen them and just like, yeah, okay, and then you just pass it up for something else. So we're going to talk about a couple of those things. All four of these are from Rock Hall of Fame bands, deservedly so. So let's get started. We're going to start first with Van Halen's Fair Warning. This is by far and away my favorite Van Halen album. I don't know why. I was a member of Columbia House. For those of you who remember that, you send in a penny, you get a bunch of records, but you got to buy so many records over so many years. And if you don't send the thing back saying you don't want it, they send it to you. So I guess I got the information in the mail and never did anything with it. And so I got sent Fair Warning. I was not a big Van Halen fan. I really wasn't. My sister had 1 and 2 and a few other things. And we'd listen to it. And I kind of had a few songs that I really liked. But I didn't have like, oh, I got to have, I can't wait till the next record comes out. Till I got this. Mean Street, which is a very intriguing intro. Hear About It Later, Unchained, which is, regardless of what anybody thinks, my opinion, the epitome of the greatest Van Halen song. So This Is Love, Push Comes to Shove. I enjoyed this record. It's a great record. It was, however, unfortunately, the lowest selling record of that initial incarnation of those initial 6 albums. This was album number 4, came right after Women and Children's and right before came right before Diver Down, which I thought was a bunch of covers. And then, of course, they released 1984, which completely changed the 80s landscape from 84 and 85. And until in 86, they released 5150. Great record. 2, Dagila, ZZ Top. This was their comeback album. They had taken a break, went and did some other things after their greatest hits, took some time off. It was not a big thing that you did back in the 70s because you didn't have an MTV. You didn't have. So the only thing you had was touring and pushing and promoting. And they took time off. And they weren't out there doing it. And so they came back with this album in 79 after a couple of years off. This was the first introduction to the beards. I mean, they all had scruff and they all had the short beards, but this is the first time Dusty and Billy came back with the beards. I Thank You was the initial single off of this. It did okay. Didn't win any new fans over. But it also has, this album is just classic. It's I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide, Maniac Mechanic, which is weird. It's really, really weird, but it's so good. Low Down on the Street, High Five Mama, Cheap Sunglasses is on here. This is really a very, very cool record. It, to me, was the first of a really great trilogy of records from them. They didn't really have anything aligned with each other. It was just a good, record. Because they followed this with El Loco, which to me is equally as great. And then Eliminator, which then during the MTV era really broke them out. Heart, Passion Works. This was the first album with the revamped Heart. After the lack of huge success of Private Audition, they kind of revamped the band. Howard Lee stayed, the Wilson sisters stayed, but they added drummer Danny Carmazzi and bass player Mark Andes. And Mark Andes is an interesting pickup because he came from Firefall and JoJo Gunn, and their style is kind of not, doesn't fit, but he did a wonderful job. And Denny Carmazzi came from the Montrose Records. Very, very well-versed players that they brought in, and they, that whole combination brought them to a new level of songwriting. How Can I Refuse is the first single off of this, and it is my favorite Heart song. I know that might drive some traditionalists crazy, but it's a wonderful. If you've not heard it, go on Spotify and listen to it. It's just a classic, great classic. Johnny Moon, blue guitar. Sleep Alone is a great song. Allies, which was another top 40 song from them, was written by Jonathan Cain of Journey and the Babies fame. Passion Works is great. Their next album was the self-titled Heart, and that kind of really just changed their direction, and they became huge superstars again and started playing in the big arenas. I saw them on this because they couldn't really sell as many tickets as they had in the past because people were thinking they were a 70s band. But on that tour, they did a joint tour, co-headlining tour with Kansas. Kansas had just released Drastic Measures, and they were both having the same similar situations. They weren't selling out the big arenas, and they figured, well, together we can sell more tickets, and they did. The tour was pretty good. I saw it in college. They would alternate who's opening, and when I saw them, Heart opened, and Kansas was the good tour. I mean, great record. Give a listen to it. It is. It's very much worth it. Last, this one was interesting. I first saw it on MTV back in '86, I believe. It was regarded, I saw this video called Princess of the Universe, and it was credited to the Highlander soundtrack. So of course I'm going, wow, this is a good song. I've got to go find this Highlander soundtrack because this has got to be good. Couldn't find a soundtrack anywhere because the Michael Kamen soundtrack existed with the instrumentals, you know, all of just the music from but not the songs. And we're talking about Queen, Kind of Magic. Queen basically decided that, hey, all the songs we've written for that, let's just make our own record. And they added a few songs to it. And it became, you know, a Queen album released in '86. It did eventually go gold. Was not well versed here in America, but it did have a few mainstream moments. To me, it's one of my favorite Queen albums. I used to drive my friends crazy. This one and Bruce Hornsby in the Range, the way it is, every time they'd come in the car, one or the other would be playing, and they'd like, I can't believe that you're going to listen to that. Because during that time frame, those were the records I really enjoyed. One Vision, which was actually from a movie a year before, called Iron Eagle, the first one. I know there's like 17 of them now, but the original Iron Eagle. One Vision opens the recording. Kind of Magic, of course, is there. 1 Year of Love, Friends Will Be Friends, Who Wants to Live Forever, Gimme the Prize, Kurgan's Theme, which is just rocking. It's like, you know, Brian May, just go crazy. Cool. All right. Princess of the Universe is the same way. Forever, it's kind of a blend of hard rocking and soft. So, you know, when they went hard, they really went hard. When they went soft, of course, it was very well versed. But yeah, it was like two songs were not from the movie. So if you've seen the movie, you've seen this. It's kind of sad. The only song that's not on here that's in the movie is when they do a version of New York, New York. Those who've seen the movie would understand that. But this is a wonderful record. It did not, you know, like I said, it did okay here in America. It eventually went gold. The tour was not a huge one here in America. I think they only hit like 5 different main cities, you know, the New York, the LAs, and Chicago's. But the world tour was their biggest in their history. They went out and they played to huge audiences worldwide. It was a phenomenon. And they actually capped it. They recorded one of their shows at Wembley Stadium, the old Wembley Stadium. And it was recorded and released, and it's kind of funny that the live album based off of this tour outsold the album they were touring for here in the States. Kind of interesting the way we look at things. They had great albums in the 80s. Don't count Hot Space. But before this was Works, which was great worldwide, barely went gold here in America. This album, Miracle, which actually did sell decently here in America. If you can get the extended album version of I Want It All, it's just genius. And then Innuendo. Innuendo was their final recording, their final album with Freddie Mercury. They did release an album in the 90s called Made in Heaven, which was kind of, I won't call it excerpts, just songs that didn't make, and they revamped them and did some stuff. And it's not bad, but it's what it is. It's kind of we've got these songs, let's just go ahead and release them type thing. Those are my picks. Great records. Give them a chance. Go on Spotify. Listen to them. In the meantime, you guys have a great day.